I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself I'd laugh about this someday. I was wrong about both. It was Tuesday evening, the 6th overnight business trip in 3 weeks. I leaned against our bedroom doorframe, watching Jessica pack her roller bag with practiced efficiency. 9 years of marriage, and somehow I still found myself mesmerized by the way she moved. Confident, purposeful, electric. The same qualities that had knocked me sideways at that wedding where we'd met in our mid-20s. "Thomas? You're staring again," she observed, catching my reflection in the mirror, lips curving into that half-smile that always made my heart skip. At 35, I should have outgrown that teenage flutter, but Jessica had a way of making time collapse. "Just admiring the view," I responded, trying to ignore the knot forming in my stomach. The same knot that appeared every time she packed that bag lately. She turned to face me, adjusting her blazer with a precision that felt rehearsed. "How does this sound?" she asked, switching to her presentation voice, slightly lower, more authoritative. "The fourth quarter projections show a 15% increase in market penetration across all demographics." She paused, eyebrows raised. "Too corporate?" "Just corporate enough," I assured her. "You're going to nail it." Jessica crossed the room and pressed her lips to my forehead, her signature goodbye. "We're building our future together, Tom." "Remember that," she murmured, her hand briefly touching her stomach, a gesture that had become habitual during our 8 months of trying for a baby. "Senior Vice President of Marketing, 6-figure raise, that house with the nursery we've been planning." I nodded, forcing a smile. "I know. I'm proud of you," I said softly. After she left, I wandered through our suburban house, the one I'd been working from as a financial analyst for the past 3 years. The silence felt different lately, heavier, more suspicious. The pattern had established itself with unsettling regularity. Twice weekly departures, energized but distant returns. Small details began accumulating like financial discrepancies in an audit. The immediate showers upon returning, before even greeting me properly. The phone that once casually occupied countertops now residing permanently in her purse, protected by a new passcode. Conversations that migrated to the garage or bathroom, her voice dropping to secretive murmurs. I tried to rationalize it all away. Corporate culture is demanding. The promotion is everything she's worked for. She's stressed, exhausted, focused. But something in my gut, the same instinct that made me good at spotting financial patterns, told me the numbers didn't add up. That night, alone in our bedroom with Jessica's perfume lingering in the air, I opened her laptop. The password hadn't changed, our anniversary date, unlike her phone's. Her calendar appeared on screen. Peninsula Hotel, client presentation, scheduled for Friday. I stared at those words until they blurred, then closed the laptop, guilt washing over me for checking. But the doubt had taken root, sending tendrils through every memory, every assurance, every forehead kiss. It would be 3 more days before I made the decision that would change everything. I spent 3 days in mental purgatory, arguing with myself, justifying, then condemning my suspicions. On Wednesday at 2 a.m., sitting in the blue glow of my computer screen, I finally typed "private investigator near me" into the search bar. Frank Carter's website appeared at the top of the results. Retired detective, 30 years experience, discreet consultations. His photo showed a weathered man with surprisingly kind eyes and the unmistakable bearing of someone who'd seen humanity at its worst, but hadn't surrendered his compassion. The coffee shop where we met Thursday morning was busy enough to provide anonymity, but quiet enough for conversation. I arrived 15 minutes early, chose a corner table, and ordered a coffee I couldn't drink through my knotted stomach. Frank arrived exactly on time, dressed in an unremarkable gray suit that seemed designed to blend into any environment. He recognized me immediately. Something about the anxious posture of suspected infidelity victims, I supposed. "Mr. Brennan?" he asked, extending his hand with a firm but not aggressive handshake. "Frank Carter." I felt like a criminal explaining my suspicions in hushed tones, listing the evidence that seemed so damning in my mind, but suddenly sounded circumstantial when spoken aloud. Frank listened without judgment, taking notes on a small pad, occasionally nodding. "I've seen this hundreds of times," he said finally, his voice gentle but matter-of-fact. "The shifting behavior, the business trips, the sudden privacy obsession. But I should tell you something." He leaned forward. "About 60% of my cases end with the spouse being completely faithful, just stressed or going through something personal they're not ready to share." "So most of the time you're wrong?" I asked, a flicker of hope igniting. "Most of the time I'm wrong," Frank agreed, smiling slightly. "Spouses usually just want peace of mind." I hired him anyway. The retainer was $3,000, withdrawn from my personal savings account, the one Jessica didn't monitor. As I signed the contract, I felt something fundamental shift inside me, as if I'd crossed a line I could never return from. The next 2 weeks were psychological torture. I maintained perfect normalcy, cooking dinners when it was my turn, discussing baby names — she still loved Emma for a girl — watching Jessica pack for her trips with the same loving smile I'd perfected over 9 years. But I was dying inside, my phone becoming an extension of my anxiety as I waited for Frank's updates. The texts were brief, professional. "Following target to downtown location. Surveillance continuing. We'll have report Friday." Jessica had 2 more overnight trips during this period. Each time I noticed something new. Expensive black lace lingerie I'd never seen before folded carefully into her suitcase. Different perfume. Lighter, more floral than her usual scent. The way she laughed more at her phone, the screen tilted away from me. Once I heard her in the bathroom, voice barely audible. "I can't wait either." "No, he doesn't suspect anything." "Friday." "Yes." My heart broke a little more each day. On the 14th day, Frank called. I knew before answering. Something in the timing, in the fact that he called rather than texted. "Mr. Brennan, we need to meet in person. I have the report," he stated, his tone telling me everything I needed to know. I drove to his office in a dissociative state, traffic lights and street signs blurring past. I parked outside the small brick building and sat in my car for 10 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel. Part of me wanted to drive away, to preserve the illusion. The other part needed to know the truth. Frank's expression, sympathetic, resigned, apologetic, confirmed my worst fears before a single word was spoken. Frank spread the photographs across his desk like autopsy reports. And in a way, they were. The death certificate of my marriage, signed and dated in high resolution. "I'm sorry, Mr. Brennan," Frank said quietly, his voice seeming to come from far away. "I really am." The photographs showed Jessica entering the Peninsula Hotel with a man I'd never seen. Late 20s, athletic build, expensive suit, multiple dates, multiple locations, restaurant booths where they held hands across tables, a parking garage where they kissed against her car, his hand on her lower back in a way that spoke of familiarity and practiced intimacy. Frank walked me through the timeline methodically, his voice providing a steady rhythm to anchor me as my world collapsed. "Based on our documentation, the affair has been going on for at least 4 months," he explained, sliding more photos across the desk. "But this credit card statement shows charges that suggest it likely started earlier, possibly 7 months ago." 7 months. While I'd been researching cribs and painting color schemes for our future baby's room. "The man's name is Derek Mitchell," Frank continued, placing a printout of a LinkedIn profile beside the photos. 28, works for Meridian Marketing, a competitor to your wife's firm. He's married, 2 kids under 5. Frank showed me hotel receipts, always the Peninsula, always room 847 or nearby floors, booked under Derek's name on his corporate card. They'd been there at least 12 times. The trips weren't random, they followed a pattern, every Tuesday and Friday night. "She has another trip scheduled this Friday," Frank said quietly. "Same hotel, same booking pattern. I verified it through my hotel contact, checked in under his name, as usual." I stared at the photographs, my vision tunneling. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This was a systematic, calculated double life. While I was researching cribs and painting color schemes, she was lying naked with another man, planning their next meeting, perfecting her deceptions. Frank continued with financial evidence. Unexplained charges for lingerie stores, expensive restaurants they never visited together, a secret credit card I didn't know existed. She'd been living two complete lives, wife planning a family, mistress playing house with her lover. I felt something inside me break and reform into something harder, colder. The grief was still there, but it was overshadowed by a crystalline clarity. She'd made a fool of me. She'd endangered my health, unprotected intimacy while trying to conceive with me. She'd stolen months of my life. I thanked Frank and asked for copies of everything. As I was leaving, a thought crystallized with perfect, terrible clarity. I wouldn't just divorce her. I wouldn't give her the chance to control the narrative, to paint herself as the unhappy wife who made a mistake, to manipulate our friends and family with her version of events. I was going to make sure everyone who mattered saw the truth simultaneously. No filter, no spin, no escape. That evening, Jessica came home cheerful, chattering about her day. I smiled and asked about dinner. I was remarkably calm. She didn't notice that something fundamental had changed in me. I waited until she was asleep, then made a phone call to her parents, Richard and Madeline, who'd always treated me like their own son. I left a voicemail. "I need you to come over Friday morning. It's about Jessica. No, she's not hurt. But it's urgent. Please trust me." I hung up and looked at the ceiling, my wife sleeping peacefully beside me, oblivious. The game had changed, and she didn't even know the board had been flipped. I had 4 days to prepare, 4 days to perfect my mask, 4 days to build the gallows she'd hang herself on. She never suspected a thing. The next 4 days were the most surreal of my life. I moved through my marriage like a ghost, present but disconnected, watching Jessica with anthropological detachment. Monday. I met with a divorce attorney, Mark Carlson, bringing all of Frank's evidence. Mark reviewed everything methodically, his expression growing grimmer with each photograph. "This is about as ironclad as it gets for a fault-based divorce," Mark said finally, tapping the evidence folder. "Adultery, documentation, financial evidence. She won't have a leg to stand on. We discussed asset protection, documenting our shared accounts, securing my retirement funds. I signed a retainer agreement. As I left his office, I felt strangely hollow, like I was watching someone else's life disintegrate, not my own. Tuesday. Jessica had an overnight trip, of course. I used the time to photograph all our valuables, download financial records, make copies of important documents. I transferred my personal savings to a new account at a different bank. I changed my retirement account beneficiary. I wasn't angry. I was surgical. Each action felt like dismantling a bomb, careful and precise. I was protecting what was mine from the explosion to come. Wednesday. Her parents called back, confusion and worry evident in their voices. "What's going on, Tom?" "Is Jessica okay?" Richard asked, his military background giving his concern a sharp edge. I kept my tone vague but firm. "Please just come Friday morning, 9 a.m. I need you to see something. It involves Jessica, but I can't explain over the phone. Please trust me," I implored. There was a long pause. "We'll be there," Madeline finally said, her voice tight with maternal anxiety. Thursday. I had dinner with Jessica, just the two of us, at the Italian place she loved. She was radiant, laughing, talking about the promotion that should come through any week now. She mentioned baby names again. "I still love Emma for a girl," she said wistfully. I nodded, smiled, played my part perfectly. Inside, I was hollow. I watched her lie effortlessly and realized I never really knew her at all. That night, in bed, she initiated intimacy. I went through the motions, feeling like I was betraying myself. Afterward, she curled against me, whispered, "I love you." I said it back automatically. The words felt like ash in my mouth. Friday morning. Jessica packed her overnight bag with practiced efficiency. I watched from the doorway, memorizing this moment. The last time she'd pack in this house. The last time she'd leave for her business trip. She kissed my forehead, her signature goodbye, reminded me she'd be back Saturday morning. "I'll miss you," she said, smiling. "I'll miss you too," I replied. It was technically true. I'd miss the woman I thought she was, who never actually existed. She left at 8:30 a.m. Her parents arrived at 9 a.m. sharp. Richard and Madeline sat in the living room, bewildered and increasingly anxious. I brought out a laptop, files, and the manila envelope from Frank. "Before I show you this," I said carefully, "I want you to know that I love your daughter. Or I did. And I'm showing you this because you deserve to know the truth from me, not from her after she's had time to craft a story." I opened the envelope. Madeline's hand went to her mouth. Richard's jaw clenched, that military rigidity taking over. They looked through every photograph, every receipt, every documented lie. Silence filled the room like a physical presence. Finally, Richard spoke, voice like gravel. "Where is she right now?" "The Peninsula Hotel. Room 847. She checked in 90 minutes ago." "With him," I answered, my voice devoid of emotion. Madeline's eyes filled with tears. "What do you need from us?" she asked softly. "I need you to come with me. I need you to see it with your own eyes. Because when this is over, she's going to try to explain it away, blame me, blame stress, blame anything but herself. I need you to know, beyond any doubt, exactly who she's become," I explained. Richard stood up. "Then let's go," he said firmly, determination in every line of his body. The drive downtown took 23 minutes. Not one of us spoke. We didn't need to. We all knew that what happened in that hotel room would change everything, for all of us, forever. The Peninsula Hotel lobby was all marble and subdued lighting, designed for discretion. We moved through it like executioners approaching the scaffold, purposeful, silent, grim. The elevator ride to the 8th floor stretched into eternity. I held the master key card Frank had provided, hotel security contact, former cop buddy, asked no questions. My hand was surprisingly steady. The hallway's thick carpet muffled our footsteps as we approached room 847, which loomed ahead like a destination we'd been walking toward for months. My heart hammered against my ribs so hard I could feel it in my throat. I swiped the card. Green light. The lock clicked open with a mechanical whisper that sounded like fate. Richard pushed the door open first, moving with that marine efficiency, quick, decisive, controlled. The scene inside froze like a tableau in hell. Jessica and Derek, completely naked, tangled on the bed in the moment before they noticed the door opening. For a suspended heartbeat, no one moved. Then Jessica's head turned, her face transforming from pleasure to confusion to pure animal terror. "Mom? Dad?" she gasped, her voice cracking, high and desperate. She grabbed at sheets, trying to cover herself, eyes wild. "What are you... Tom?" I stepped into the room, my voice coming out eerily calm, almost conversational. "Working late. For our future. That's what you said, right?" Derek, younger than I expected, handsome in that corporate polished way, now scrambling backward on the bed like a trapped animal, stammered incoherently. "Listen, this isn't... I didn't mean..." Richard snapped. Years of military training and fatherly rage combined into something terrifying. He lunged forward, grabbing Derek by the throat before anyone could react, and slammed him against the wall with a hollow thud that rattled the framed art. "You piece of shit!" he roared. Derek's hands clawed at Richard's grip, his face reddening. He tried to fight back, threw a wild punch that Richard easily deflected. Richard's fist drove into Derek's stomach with surgical precision, doubling him over. Another punch to the face sent Derek sprawling onto the carpet, naked and pathetic, blood streaming from his nose. "Daddy, stop!" Jessica screamed, her voice raw, primal, but Madeline held her back physically, both hands on her daughter's shoulders, face stony and unrecognizable. I watched with a dark satisfaction I'd never experienced before. Every lie, every forehead kiss before she left for these trips, every conversation about baby names while she was planning her next hotel rendezvous, it all crystallized into this moment. Derek tried to crawl away, leaving a smear of blood on the carpet. Richard kicked him hard in the ribs, a controlled strike, meant to hurt, but not permanently damage. Derek gasped, curling into a fetal position. I stepped forward. I grabbed Derek by the hair, forcing the bloodied face to look up at me. For 3 seconds, our eyes met. I wanted him to see everything. The 9-year marriage destroyed, the future stolen, the absolute finality of this moment. Then I drove my knee into his face. The impact was satisfying in a primal, terrible way. Derek collapsed fully, groaning, nose definitely broken now, hands shaking as he tried to protect himself. Richard stood over him, breathing hard, knuckles split and bleeding. "Get dressed. Get the hell out. If I ever see you again, I'll finish this," he threatened, his voice deadly quiet. Derek scrambled for his clothes with shaking hands, couldn't manage his buttons, gave up on his shirt entirely. He limped out of the room half-dressed, trailing blood, not looking back. The door clicked shut behind him with pathetic finality. Silence descended like a funeral shroud. Richard turned to Jessica, who was wrapped in sheets, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. "How long?" he demanded, his voice granite. "Daddy, please!" she begged. "How long?" he repeated, each word like a bullet. 7 months, she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. Madeline made a sound like she'd been gutted. I felt nothing. No rage, no grief, just vast emptiness. "I loved you," I said quietly. "I would have given you anything. We were trying for a baby, Jessica." "I know, I'm sorry, Tom. I'm so sorry, I don't know why she sobbed, her words tumbling out desperately. "You're sorry you got caught," I cut her off cleanly. I turned to her parents. "I'm filing for divorce Monday morning. I wanted you here so you'd know the truth, the real truth, before she spins this into something I did, some failure on my part that drove her to this." Madeline nodded, tears streaming silently down her face. I looked at Jessica one last time. "I'll pack your things. You can pick them up from your parents' house. Don't come home. I'm changing the locks tonight. We're done," I stated with finality. "Tom, please, we can talk about this. We can go to counseling," she pleaded, reaching toward me. "There's nothing left to talk about," I interrupted. "You made your choice 7 months ago. Every time you kissed my forehead and walked out that door, you made it again." I turned and walked out of room 847, Richard and Madeline following. The door closed on Jessica's sobbing. In the elevator, descending, none of us spoke. The numbers ticked down. 8, 7, 6, 5. By the time we reached the lobby, I had already called a locksmith. The elevator doors opened onto the lobby. Somewhere above us, in room 847, Jessica was having the worst moment of her life. I felt nothing. That would come later. Jessica hired an aggressive attorney and tried to fight everything: the house, shared assets, alimony, even attempted to claim I had been emotionally abusive and drove her to the affair. Her lawyer pushed for a 50-50 split, arguing 9 years of marriage entitled her to half of everything. My attorney presented Frank's evidence in pre-trial discovery. The photographs, hotel receipts, credit card statements, timeline of lies. More importantly, Richard and Madeline testified in depositions, confirming they witnessed the affair firsthand, describing their daughter's betrayal in painful detail. Jessica's own parents, testifying against her. The betrayal she never forgave them for. The judge was a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who'd clearly seen this scenario before. Fault-based divorce, adultery proven beyond any doubt. I kept the house, my name on the mortgage, my down payment. Kept my retirement accounts, kept most of the shared savings. No alimony. Jessica had a job and was able-bodied. Clean break, final decree signed 6 months after room 847. Jessica's affair partner, Derek Mitchell, disappeared the moment lawyers got involved. His wife filed for divorce 2 weeks after the hotel incident. My attorney had sent her the evidence as a courtesy. Derek lost his job when his company learned he'd been using corporate resources, expense accounts, company hotel bookings, to facilitate an extramarital affair. Last I heard, Derek was working in sales at a car dealership in another state. Jessica's own company conducted an internal investigation. Turns out several of her overnight business trips had been fabricated entirely. No client meetings, no presentations, just paid time used for hotel rendezvous. She'd been expensing meals, transportation, even the hotels occasionally. The promotion she'd been chasing never existed. She'd been stringing me along with that lie while destroying our marriage. She was quietly terminated for expense account irregularities and signed an NDA to avoid prosecution. In the small world of corporate marketing, word spread. She couldn't get similar work afterward. The family fracture. Richard and Madeline never fully forgave Jessica. They maintained contact. She was still their daughter. But the relationship was irrevocably damaged. Madeline told me later over coffee that they'd raised her to have integrity, to honor commitments. "We don't know where we went wrong," she confessed, crying into her napkin. I still had dinner with them occasionally. Holidays, birthdays. They'd become more my family than Jessica's in the aftermath. Jessica moved to Phoenix 8 months after the divorce finalized. New city, new start, trying to escape the wreckage of her old life. I heard through mutual friends that she was working at a small marketing agency, lower position, less pay, living alone. The last I'd heard, Derek's ex-wife was seeking increased child support, and Derek was struggling to pay. Poetic justice, I thought, but it brought no satisfaction, just emptiness where a life used to be. The first 6 months were brutal. I started therapy twice weekly, processing betrayal trauma, rebuilding my sense of self-worth, learning to trust again. Dr. Sarah Klein, my therapist, helped me understand that Jessica's choices weren't reflections of my inadequacy, but of her own character failures. I threw myself into work, picked up new clients, increased my income, renovated the house, painted over the colors we'd chosen together, replaced furniture, exorcised ghosts room by room. I turned the would-be nursery into a home office. It hurt, but it was necessary. Friends split down the middle. Some stayed loyal to me. Others maintained Switzerland neutrality or quietly sided with Jessica's narrative that the marriage had been troubled. It hadn't. I let them go. The ones who mattered stayed. 14 months after the divorce, a colleague introduced me to Andrea Walsh, 34, graphic designer, divorced herself 3 years prior, no kids. She was honest, straightforward, emotionally intelligent in ways Jessica never was. We started dating slowly. Coffee dates, gallery walks, long conversations about past trauma and future hopes. Andrea knew the whole story. I told her everything on our 4th date, expecting her to run. Instead, she reassured me, "You did what you had to do, and you survived it. That says everything I need to know about your character." 2 years after room 847, I'm in a healthy relationship, own my home outright, have rebuilt my life from the foundation up. I still have bad days, triggers, memories, moments of grief for the 9 years I thought were real. But they're fewer now. People ask if I regret the confrontation, if bringing her parents was too harsh, if destroying her so completely was necessary. I tell them the truth. Jessica had been lying to everyone. Me, her parents, her employer, Derek's wife. Someone had to force the truth into the light, to strip away the carefully constructed facade and make everyone see who she really was. I chose to do it in a way that left no room for manipulation, no space for her to rewrite history, no opportunity to play the victim. She wanted to live a double life. I simply made sure both sides were exposed simultaneously. On the second anniversary of the divorce, I was having dinner with Andrea at the same Italian restaurant where I'd taken Jessica the night before, room 847. Different booth, different woman, different life. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, then checked. It was a text from Jessica. I know you'll never forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I need you to know, I'm sorry. For all of it. You deserved so much better. I hope you found it. I read it twice. Felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, not even pity. Just distant acknowledgement that this chapter was closed. I deleted the message without responding. Andrea looked at me questioningly. Everything okay? She asked. I smiled, took her hand across the table. Just spam, I replied. We ordered dessert and talked about our weekend plans, a hiking trip upstate, something simple and honest and real. I've built a new life from the ashes of my old one. It's not perfect, but it's mine, and it's honest. And that, I've learned, is more than enough. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.